Hi guys, this is Maggie. We're back with my channel and my series, Making Mischief. So I mostly got this channel started because of Maggie maybe reading on TikTok, but this series specifically is all about these wonderful creators I met who are also creating stories of their own and becoming emerging authors with this entire backing of the community as they write. And so today I get to have my friend Lauren on. Hello, Lauren.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, your energy is so infectious. I think you are my caffeine today. So this is good. But I'm just curious if you could introduce yourself to people. Let me know what got you onto BookTok. Were you writing before you started on BookTok, and kind of how that's evolved?
Yeah, so I'm Lauren. I live in the great state of Michigan, which is pretty bland and boring, but I started BookTok literally like barely over a year ago. Like I just celebrated 1 year like 3 days ago.
Oh,
And it all started like in quarantine. I was bored and I had been on the sidelines of BookTok for months. Like I grew up reading. I loved like Magic Treehouse and like that was my I loved those books. And so I grew up with that and I loved reading. And then I remember I joined BookTok kind of like on the sidelines and I fell back into reading and I was like, why did I ever stop? Like, I love this so much. So I was on BookTok for a while. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make a video. Why not? And I'm very much, if you know me at all, I'm very much like an all or nothing person, which is so interesting how I started writing a book because I never thought I would do that. But I was like, all right, if this video doesn't go anywhere, like I'm taking it down. I'm done with this. And as we all know, TikTok is very like iffy. The algorithm is crazy. Like,
it is there's no actual rhyme or reason. People are like, this is the strategy to do well, and I'm like, there's not really, there's no one size fits all.
exactly. And so, of course, why did I come into TikTok being like, if I don't blow up right off the bat, like, I'm not doing this? And that was literally my mindset. So I don't even know how that happened, but I posted a video and remember the first like half hour, it had like 3 views. And I was like, this is embarrassing. Like,
Those hurt. They always hurt.
yes. And I was like, what if people I know see this and they're like, Lauren, what are you doing? Like, this is embarrassing. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. So I was literally about to take it down. And then I remember someone commented and was like, hi, Lauren, like, welcome to BookTok. And I was like, oh, well, that was really nice. So I was like, you know what? I'll keep it up for like 10 more minutes. We'll see what happens. So I kept it up. And then these comments started like rolling in of people like, welcome, like so happy you're here. And like BookTok is incredible and so welcoming. And I remember like I had like tears in my eyes. I was like, I have like 100 views. I have like 30 comments. This is crazy. So I kept it up. And I remember I went to bed that night and I woke up and the video had hit like 10K views and I was like blown away. I was like, no way. So then I was like, all right, we're doing this. So I started posting more things and just like talking to people on there. And I was having so much fun. I've always loved like I was a really weird kid. I always call myself like I always call myself yeah, I have an only child because all my siblings are like way older than I am. I was a surprise, you know. So I grew up like entertaining myself with Barbies and like stories and stuff like that. So I loved like I had this little camera and I would record myself as like movies and then I would watch them back later at night and I'd be like, oh, I'm like, it's like a movie. It was so weird. I don't know.
She was already living her own life. She was like, I'm in my own story. You guys can just do your thing.
Right. I was like determined. I was like pretending I was famous all the time, like just recording myself and all the paparazzi. Like I was just really weird. So I always loved like recording things and talking to people and stuff. So BookTok was like a great outlet for that. And so my account just kind of, it honestly just kept growing. Like I don't even know how it happened or why, but it just did. And now I have like over 250,000 and it's insane. And I love the community. I love everyone on there. And yeah, I've just celebrated 1 year and my chaotic family. I love them. So it's great.
I love that. I was about to say, you have just like, what a like journey over just a year. That's incredible. Congratulations on that.
Thank
But
you.
also, then when you first started writing Powerless, was it because of BookTok, or was it because, oh, also guys, we're talking about her book Powerless, in case you didn't know. That is the book we're talking about today. But yeah, did you know, like, had you already been writing it, or was it spurred off of like BookTok?
So have always, I guess I forgot to answer this before, but I've always loved writing. I grew up like I was the kid in school. Like if the teacher was like, all right, everyone write a 2-page paper, I was writing like 6 pages. Like I was like, here you go. Like I just loved it so much. I loved like pretty words and like stringing things together to like make pretty scenes. It was my favorite thing. So, but I had never really done much with it. Like I had never written a book before. I'd written like short stories and I did a lot of like fun little journaling, like every day I would do that. But nothing crazy. And I never thought that I would, because I was like, no one's gonna read it. Like I'm a girl from Michigan. Like who's gonna read my book? So then when I started BookTok, it all started, I remember, because I went on a live and I had written something for school about like how it feels to read. And it was like a short little story. And I was like, oh, like, so you guys are readers, I'll read this for you. And so I read it to them and they were like, Lauren, you should write a book. And I was like, oh, I would, but I don't have any ideas. Like I had not a single clue what to write about. I was like, I love fantasy and like romance and, you know, fighting, but I was like, I don't know what to do with it. Like, I have no idea. So I always told them like, if I come up with an idea, I'll write a book. And then one day, I think it must have been like weeks later, I was in the shower where all my good ideas come from.
All great ideas come from the shower.
Literally, I want to get one of those like notepads in there so I can write them all down, because I just like, it hit me, the idea for Powerless there. It was just like barely scratching the surface of what it was. But I was like, wait, that's an idea. So then I remember I went on a live and I told people on the live, I was like, I kind of had this idea, I don't know. And they were like, do it, like you should do this and like add this. And they were literally helping me like construct this book.
They were brainstorming. They were basically like giving you an outline.
Exactly. And I have people from that live, like to this day, being like, I remember being on that live when you came up with this idea, and like now seeing it like turn into what it is crazy. So from there, that's when I started writing Powerless. And I actually didn't tell anybody that I was writing it until I was like, I want to say 10 chapters in, because again, this goes back to me being a very all or nothing person. So I was like, I don't want to tell people like, oh, I'm writing a book, and then 3 days later be like, yeah, I quit doing that.
I'm really good at that. I'll start a million things and I don't finish any of them. So I don't blame you at all.
Literally. And I was like, that's embarrassing. I was like, I don't want to tell people, then have to like back out of it, especially on TikTok, being like, I'm writing something and then I don't. So I waited until I was like, okay, I love this story. I want it to go somewhere. Like, I'm going to start telling people. And then from there, I started making a few TikToks about it, and people were like, what? Oh my gosh, you're writing a book. And that was back in April of last year. And then I finished writing it right before the beginning of August. So I really wrote it in like 4 months.
Holy
Yeah. And people are always like, how did you write it so quickly? And I'm like, it's because I had no life. Like I literally would wake up, write, go to work for like 8 hours, and then come home and then write till, I kid you not, 3 a.m. Like that was like my prime writing time, was like 1 to 3 in the morning was when like all my ideas were like flowing.
You just know your time. So you got to wait
right.
until the night.
Right. And then I'd wake up the next morning and read it and be like, there are so many typos in this, because I was like delusional. But so yeah, I really wrote it very quickly, but I was like so excited, and it was all I was doing because I was at online school and I worked, and that was kind of it. And then I wrote, and then BookTok became just like a huge part of my life. And so that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing, because like I feel like I've been on some of these lives where you've either read parts of the book or like excerpts and stuff. And I just feel like it has grown so much. Like I feel like everyone's just waiting. They're just like, cool, when do we get to read? Like everybody's gonna go out and buy this, just because you have so many people who've been along for it. It almost makes it feel like it's their book too. You know what I mean? It's like you get to share this experience
Yeah.
with everybody, which is so cool. And I'm curious. Tell us a little bit about the world of Powerless. It is fantasy? I take it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So tell us about. We'll get to the characters in a bit, but I just like tell me about the world you created.
All right. So honestly, it's grown from what it started as. Like, I remember starting this book, and I'm very much, there's two different types of writers. There's like outliners, and then there's like pantsers, like they write by the seat of their pants and everything. And every writer's supposed to be both, because that just works, or not supposed to, but they typically are both. And I was like, nope, I'm a pantser. I'm not outlining a thing. And so I barely outlined. Like, I knew like the beginning, the middle, and the end, but everything in between, I was like, oh, I want to have a ballroom scene. Yeah, let's do that. And then I just write it.
You're just winging it.
Literally, like, I was just going for it. And again, this was the first time I ever wrote a book. So I was like, oh, I need to outline. Like, that's okay. And then as I went along, I was like, well, that was a mistake. So then I would go back and like outline things. And then I remember characters just like literally started saying things that like were adding to the story. And I was like, where did you get this idea from? Like, what do you mean? Like, what? And then like plot twists were happening and things. Just like, it really grew to like more than I ever thought it would be. And so that led me to like outlining things and rewriting things and everything. But the world of Powerless basically is one where, long story short, a plague swept through like 100 years prior and killed a lot of people. All right. And the people that it didn't kill, like it altered their DNA. I have such a hard time explaining my own book. I don't even know why.
You're fine. Probably like put it all down and it all makes sense up here. It's just getting it out in the words is not as easy.
Exactly. I'm like, how do I describe this? It altered their DNA. And so for some people, they grew and developed these like supernatural powers. All right. And they range from like very small, like insignificant, like, oh, they can always tell when someone's lying, to like telekinesis. Like they vary in strengths and all sorts of different powers. But some people did not get these powers. Their DNA was altered, but for reasons they don't understand, they aren't powerful. So there's the elites who have the powers and the ordinaries who do not. And so 30 years prior to like present day Powerless, the king wanted an elite society. And so he started what is known as the purging and killed all of the ordinaries in his kingdom because he wanted an elite society. So now fast forward to like present day Powerless, we're left with a kingdom full of elites. Like everybody has powers. All right. Except for our main character, Peyton. She is an ordinary. So long story short,
I literally get goosebumps when I hear this. Like, I just get so excited. I feel like it's in the realm of like all of our, like what I grew up with, like the Divergent world and just like all of it. And it just, anyway, I get so hyped. Continue.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That means so much. So like Peyton does not have a power. And so every 5 years, the kingdom of Ilya holds what it's called the purging trials. And it's basically like 10 elites get picked, which normally like royal blood or like higher status, but there's a few like lower elites that get picked for like entertainment purposes, make things interesting. And Peyton, our main character, unwittingly saves one of the princes. And because of that, the people want her in the purging trials. So, but the whole point of these purging trials is to showcase these abilities and show how strong the elites are. But your girl Peyton doesn't have a power. So either she'll die in the trials because they're deadly, or she'll die if she's discovered to be an ordinary. So there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And there's a little, I don't know if you've seen the show Psych. Yes, love it. And it actually, like, I didn't get this idea from there, but after I came up with the idea, I was like, this reminds me of Psych. But so Peyton's father like knew she was an ordinary, so from a young age he trained her to be like hyper observant so that she could pass as a psychic. So she's been living her life like on the streets of Ilya, like as a thief, posing as a psychic so that she's not killed for being an ordinary. So she has to like hold up this, like keep this facade in order to stay alive, but also like stay alive because the trials are so deadly. And so the world honestly is very twisted. They have a twisted way of living, this elite society, and anyone who is an elite isn't worthy in the king's eyes type of thing. So, and Peyton has a lot of resentment against him for a lot of different reasons, but she kind of has to like figure out that she has a power of her own, even though she's not an elite. So
Right. Wait,
yeah.
we have Peyton, and then who's the rest? Who else are we gonna love or hate?
Okay, so we have Kai, and Powerless is actually written in 2 point of views, so one from Peyton and one from Kai, because
I love multiple POVs. I'm all about it.
I love hearing like the guy's thoughts about the girl. Like, that is my favorite thing ever. So I was like, of course I have to write that. Like, that has to be in there. So we have Kai, which is the prince that Peyton like unwittingly saved, and his older brother Kit. Love him to death. Kit and Kai are very different, but they have such a bromance. It's like my favorite thing ever. Like, they love each other so much, and they're half brothers. So I've also covered the bases of like they look different. So if you're into blondes and like green eyes, like you got Kit, and if you're into like Morley gray, like dark haired gray eyes, you got Kai. So like,
you gave us preferences. I appreciate
right.
that.
Right. And so they're very different but similar, and the bromance. But Kit is the future king, and Kai is his future enforcer, which is basically like leader of armies, executioner, like all sorts of, he's like a hand man type of thing. So when Peyton saves him, it's like a big deal, right? Because he's the enforcer and he can handle himself. And so those are like our main characters in Powerless, but because the trials have like 10 contestants altogether, there's still 7 other people you get to meet. And one of them is Jax, which is kind of like Kit and Kai's adopted little brother, and they took him in when he was really little, and he is just like a ray of sunshine. He's absolutely adorable. I love this boy so much, and he came from my brain. I don't know. And so he's in the trials and he's so cute. And then there's a lot of other contestants who you'll either love or hate, which is always fun. And then Peyton has her best friend Adina, who she's been living with on the streets for several years, and they are like inseparable. And I love Adina. She's super bubbly and fun and very lovable. But there are definitely characters that are not so that's fun.
Balance. We can also get out aggression on other characters. That's good.
Exactly.
So I always do this thing, and it's basically, if you have, I'm gonna set a timer, if you have like 20 seconds to convince someone to read your book, like it's an elevator pitch type, or just like this is what the book is about, like if you like A, B, C, or D, just like throw that out in 20 seconds. Are you ready?
Okay, I got this. Here we go.
Okay, we got this. Deep breath. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, if you like protagonists who always carry knives and push them against hot princes' throats, you will love Powerless, because that happens a lot. If you love ballroom dances with your enemy that you're trying not to hate, but you kind of don't hate, then you'll love Powerless. If you love fighting and action and possibly betrayal, you'll love Powerless.
There you go. I was about to say, you just like clicked everything that we like. Okay, so now that we're on the I guess the theme of tropes, what tropes can we expect in your book? Are there any ones that you specifically were like, I have to put this in there because it is my favorite?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I think my favorite trope, it's so hard. I think tending to wounds trope is like one of my all-time favorites, right? Absolutely. It's so good. But then there's also, one bed trope, which is just a classic, and the nightmare trope. Oh my gosh. Oh, there's so many. So I literally was like, you know what? We're going to put them all in there. So there is a lot of tropes in Powerless, and there's a lot of times where they're also combined. So there's one scene in particular where it starts as a nightmare trope, and then it also has a knife to the throat scene, and then it also has a one bed trope. So it all kind of like leads into one another. So there's that. There's a ton of tending to wounds tropes. There's a lot of knife to the throat scenes. There is who did this to you trope, which is again another one of my favorites.
Great. I was about to say, you're literally just hitting all of like the buzzers. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, cool.
Yes.
That makes me laugh. Wait, so is Powerless a standalone, or do you have in mind for like a series?
Yes, so it is going to be a trilogy. And I just actually finished outlining book 2, which took me way less time than I thought. Because this time I was like, I'm outlining. That is happening. So I like fully outlined everything. And I actually just started like fiddling around with writing the first chapter like last night, which I was sitting there like staring at the blank page and I was like, I don't remember how to write. Like, this is so, like, it was just completely blank. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. This is crazy.
I feel like I actually hear of authors saying that a lot. They're like, I went to start the second book, and sometimes it's like, oh, I'm just word vomiting out of the first, or it's like I literally forgot how to write.
Exactly. Because I'm like, I want to make it exciting off the bat, but I don't want to like, dump all the info from the first book on the reader. Because like as a reader, like we know what readers want. And so since I've grown up reading and like I know what books I like to read, I'm always like, I don't like when the author like just like vomits all the information from the last book or like blah blah. I don't enjoy that. So I'm like tiptoeing around trying to figure out like, okay, how do I balance this stuff? I don't know. It's been a crazy experience.
I bet. How much like how has the editing process been of the first one? Like, so you've had a while to, are you the kind of person who like had to sit it down and like not look at it for a couple weeks after you wrote it, or were you immediately like, let's edit?
I immediately was like, I remember I literally finished writing at like 3 a.m. and I was like, yes. And then the next day I woke up and was like, all right, let's edit it.
Oh,
And
damn.
so yeah, I started like going through the whole thing. And then I slowed down a ton when I went away to college and like did not pick up Powerless for, I want to say like 2 months. And I was in like a total editing slump. I was like, I don't even want to touch it. Like, I'm here with my friends. Like, I don't want to look at it. And then I remember I came home for a weekend and was like, you know what? Let me just open it up. And then I was like, I forgot how much I love this. Like, why did I stop? So, I just kept editing and doing all this stuff. And during that process, I was like looking for an editor to like obviously do more in-depth edits once I went through, because I already knew that there were things that I needed to fix before I even handed it off to anybody else. And so I finally, like, I was really like going at it once I got home from school for like Christmas break and was just editing everything. And so it was kind of good because I did get a break to kind of like set it aside and not look at it for a while when I was at school. And then when I pulled it back out, I was like, whoa, there's a lot I want to change here, a lot I want to add. So that was really good. And I finished editing very recently, actually. And I handed it off to an editor and she's reading it right now. And then we're actually gonna, I know, I was so scared. I love her. She's honestly become kind of my therapist. Like I emailed her and was like, I'm terrified to send this to you. Like, I can't believe you're going to read this. And the next day she's like, Lauren, like, calm down, eat some cake, like read a book, celebrate. Like, this is a big step. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
Oh my God. It was mom.
Literally, it was amazing. I was like, I'm not paying you enough. Like I needed to hear that. So oh, go ahead.
Oh, how did you find her, or how did you get connected with her?
Yeah, so I since I am self-publishing, I obviously am not like querying a letter or anything to like traditional publishers. So I went on the website Readsy, which has like a ton of like freelance editors and like book cover designers and like all sorts of things. So I had to like submit all about me and my book and like an excerpt from my book and then send it off to like potential editors, and then they could either like accept or decline. And then if they accepted, I could decide if I wanted to work with them, and then they quote. And so it was kind of like a back and forth process.
That's awesome. I didn't know that even existed.
Yeah, it's honestly, I've had a great experience with it. And you can look at like all of their experience and like all of the books that they've edited, and they have like all sorts of stuff on there. So I found her on Readsy, and she was just amazing off the bat. So I was like, yes, can't wait. So I handed it off to her. And it was very scary because no one has read Powerless. And I've had like friends read a couple chapters, or like my sister's a huge reader, like we read the same things, and so I kept being like, hey, you want to read my book and tell me what you think? And she's very busy, she's like a teacher, she's like, Lauren, I got time for that. So she had read a few chapters, but like no one had read it all the way through, which was scary because I was like, I need to know if this is good or not. So handing it off to my editor was like, we literally talked on the phone for an hour and a half, like the first conversation I had with her, just about like everything. And I was like, listen, I need you to tell me if this is good or not, because I don't have anybody else who is. And she's like, sounds good. So she's reading it right now, and then she's going to get back to me very soon with an like editorial assessment and like what the strong points are, what the weak points are, and everything. So I'm excited and terrified, but it needs to happen.
I was about to say, it's a step forward, but it's got to be, I mean, it's nerve-wracking. It's something new. It's also just like having someone else be able to comment on it. It's a lot, but that's so
Yes.
exciting. Like it is a huge step to actually send it to somebody and get it all going.
Mm-hmm.
Have you,
Yeah.
is your plan to, you said you wanted to self-publish. Do you also want to like have like, I know some people do beta readers. Or are you mostly just like interested in getting an editor first before you send it out like to anybody else?
Yeah. So I would love to do beta readers. I know a lot of people have asked me that. And I'm like, yes. The only thing is, honestly, I'm very new to the whole idea of beta readers. Like I hadn't even heard of that before BookTok, just because I didn't know a lot that went into writing and things like that.
Sure.
So I was like, I would love to do that. I need to figure out how to go about that, but I want to.
Right.
And so I think what I want to do is, after kind of like the first rounds of editing, then I'll hand it off to some beta readers, just because I want to make sure that things make sense, at least for the most part, like to my editor, like, oh, like this is a huge plot hole, like you might as well fix this type of thing, or like, no, it's good, you can hand it off to people. So I definitely do want to do beta readers, and I also want to do arc readers, but that's like later down the line.
Right. No, that makes sense. Is the what is your like the hardest part for you about all this within the writing?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say it's more so the self-doubt more than like anything. Like I have never doubted myself more than I have like writing this entire book. And it's so funny because one day I'll be reading a scene and I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever read. Like, this is it right here. People are going to love this. And the next day I read something else. I'm like, this is terrible. I hate it. Everyone's going to hate it. And it's just like, so it's honestly like the mood swings of writing is just so weird. And
No, I just feel like that's a lot of like that's such a normal struggle because writing feels so, I've talked to this about with some other authors about this too. It's just it's so intimate. For some reason, it feels more like giving like a piece of yourself away than any other medium. And so yeah, of course it like you're gonna doubt it, especially when you're the only one looking at it. So you're like, well, I guess I will form the opinion on this.
exactly. And so that has been like the hardest part for me, is like, is this good? Are people going to like it? And, you know, and obviously like I've had to come to terms with the fact that like, of course, not everybody's going to like it. They're going to be people who be like, this sucks. This is terrible. And I'm prepared. I'm ready. But I was like,
prepared as we can be.
right. I'm like, I'm going to stay away from good reads. Like, I don't want to read, I don't want to read that stuff. But like, it's very hard, especially with like, I heard Caven, I don't know, you know, Caven on BookTok, love her.
Yeah.
I heard her say, someone asked her, like, what's it like writing a book in the public eye? And I remember seeing that and being like, I guess that is what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I hadn't really thought of it like that. Like, people are really following each step of your writing and like hearing snippets, and like, because I love like teasing people with things and try to keep momentum going, because I've been writing this since April. Like, people have been following this. It's almost been a full year. So like trying to keep the hype, you know, per se, has been kind of a struggle. So I'll always like read little snippets or like, give little scenes and stuff like that to try and get people excited. And it's hard because like you're putting your work out there, and also because I'm reading like the most interesting or like some of my favorite scenes. So of course people are like, oh, I love them, they're great. And I'm like, thank you so much. I'm like, well, what about the other scenes that aren't as fun as maybe a ballroom scene, or like they're more information, So I feel like that's been a little more scary, is like, you might love this, but like there's a lot more to the book that maybe you wouldn't like. So that's always scary. So I know I go on lives and they'll be like, oh, read us something. And so I will. And they're like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm like, well, like, don't get your hopes up too much, because there's the whole rest of the book. And they're like, Lauren, stop.
Expectations, like, let's just keep them real low for now.
Exactly. I'm like, keep them low so I can just like blow you away if it's even just like mediocre, So I think, yeah, that's been pretty hard, is like, they're only seeing little snippets of it. So then they're like, this book is going to be amazing. Like I'm so thankful. Like I've such an amazing community, like supporting me and everything, but it scares me because I'm like, there's a lot more that maybe isn't as interesting or as good. I don't know.
Well, I think it's also because so many people who are emerging as authors don't necessarily have people who are just like keeping up with the process. Like you said, like it's a very different experience. Usually only like more established authors have to deal with the kind of like people checking in about it. Like, yay, they hold you accountable, but also there's a part of you that like wants to prove yourself to them because they do support you. And so I think it's a hard line to straddle, but I also think that like you crafted this amazing world that hooked enough people literally just talking about it. You know what I mean? Like just explaining the world and building it for them hooked a lot of people. And I think for me, that is half the battle with fantasy and with sci-fi. It's always like, I want to be excited about the world that you create so that I'm excited about the conflict and like the characters, the way they interact with that world. So I feel like that is a little something you can fall back on, is just like how much support that it already has, it is a good thing, even though it is like a gulp thing.
Right, exactly. Thank you. That means so much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I find that it's always going to be tricky. And I feel like everyone who does anything on TikTok deals with the self-doubt thing. Even if you like, I am just as like, get just as nervous about views and things that I did at like 10,000 followers as I do now. Like, you know what I mean? Even though like things have changed, I feel like I still have the same anxieties throughout.
Yes, that is so true. Like, I know what you mean about views, because like I said, I started BookTok for fun. Like, oh, let's do it. But then, and I was like, you know what, Lauren, like, no matter where this goes, like, remember that you did this for fun. Like, okay, don't think about the views or anything. And as like easy as it is to say that, like, it's so difficult to keep that mentality. Like, oh, this only got this many views, like, oh, no big deal, whatever. Sometimes you're like, that hurt a little bit. I put a lot of effort into that video or something,
Well, it's like literally the chemistry behind it. It's like the serotonin you get when people like it. And so when they don't, it's like you just like got injected with depression all of a sudden. You're like, oh gosh, no, you're right. I enjoyed doing it, so it's okay. But it's like a constant battle to fight with yourself. And like something that like I feel like we all have to like create our own boundaries or figure out how to deal with it in a way that is healthy. But it's like a constant journey.
It really is.
Do you feel like there have been either like accounts or like authors that have continued to inspire you or inspire this book at all, that kind of like encourage you in that way?
Yeah, Victoria Aveyard, the Red Queen herself.
Agreed.
I absolutely love her. Like, she really is like one of us. Like, seeing her on TikTok and just like making fun videos and like being so normal when she is like literally so successful. She blows me away, and she's so down to earth and like ready to answer questions from her fans and all this stuff. And then Red Queen is becoming like a TV show now or something. I am so excited. So, and also one of the books, like, people ask me, oh, like what books does Powerless kind of like relate to, things like that. What is it similar to? And one of them I say is Red Queen, because of like the powers and Powerless and things like that are similar to that of Red Queen. So like I just love seeing her on BookTok, just like chill and just writing amazing books. I'm like, girl, I want to be you. Like, she's so cool.
She really is. That's what I remember, like the whole One of Us thing. She really is. Like because she knows how to do TikToks in a way that feel like just her, like getting on and doing whatever, like while also being trendy and stuff, but just like being a normal person. And like she interacts a lot with people. Like she's just super generous in that way, which I think is definitely really cool.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I'm trying to think of some other authors. I know, honestly, a lot of just book talkers who are becoming authors have been huge inspirations, just like watching their journey and like how they're doing with everything. Because it's hard, like trying to figure everything out. So I love like seeing there's other people doing that as well. And I'm like, yes, cheering them on.
I feel that. What do you think you're like throughout this whole process has been the biggest surprise about writing and like the process of creating your own world and all that good stuff?
Ooh, I mean, other than the fact that people are interested in reading it, which is a huge surprise. I remember like one of my first videos I posted about it, people were so excited. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't really expecting that. Right. I was like, okay, cool. I can work with that. Other than that, I feel like I surprised myself with how attached I got to characters and like people from my brain. Like thinking about even thinking about like the end of the series, because like I know where it's going and like what's ultimately going to happen. I just sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's going to happen.
You're like geeking out about your own stuff. I love that. Like you have to, because if you don't, then nobody else is going to. So you gotta get like that.
Exactly. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I can't believe they're gonna do that. Like, what's wrong? They're crazy. I'm like, Lauren, he literally wrote them. Like, what do you mean? So that has been so fun. And like, honestly, I have learned so much through writing this book. Like I said, I've never written a book before. So figuring out the ins and outs of like how to create a world, like world building and like character development and romance and like pacing has been something that was like very important to me from the start. Like I wanted to make sure like that was good. Like I don't like insta love. I don't do that. And when it comes to like enemies to lovers, you have to walk like a fine line of like enough tension to keep people interested, but like they're not in love yet. Like I love more of a slow burn, but a slow burn that like is so exciting. And it's not like, oh, it's 300 pages in and they just now touched each other's elbows. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you want something interesting. So that was like learning the ins and outs of all that stuff and being able to write how I wanted to has been so fun. Cause like I will read other books and be like, oh wow, their writing style is so cool. And like, I love the way they do that. But then getting to go to my own book and being like, I'm just going to write how I want. And this is how I want to portray my characters, my world, and everything has been so fun. I feel very much in control, which is a good feeling. And I like that.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be such a learning process in like story structure and writing, but also just in like yourself. And like there's such pride in being able to complete that kind of thing. Just to say that you wanted to do it and you finished an entire story. Like I think that's something to be really proud of too. But I also just want to give you a chance to tell people if there's any way that we can support you, if there's anything you're looking for, or like people who are looking to read this eventually, other than like following you and keeping up with the story, what can people do to support you?
Ooh, definitely like getting word out there is a great way. So and people have been, and that's been incredible. Like I posted Powerless on Goodreads with like literally just a title. Like I don't have a cover. I don't even have a synopsis on there. And I posted like one TikTok about it months ago. And the amount of people who have like rated the book 5 stars and reviewed it and it's not even out. It's honestly the funniest thing. They're like, it's on Goodreads, just sitting there with thousands of reviews, and I'm like, the book isn't out yet.
That's amazing. Wait, that is ridiculous. And it's amazing. I
I
love that for
literally,
you.
oh no, I remember, like, I think it's insane. There's like thousands, and they're like rating it like, I literally cannot wait for this book. I already know it's gonna be 5 stars, and they're like rating it 5 stars. I'm like, I love you guys. I do not deserve this.
Oh, that's amazing. I really
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, it has been crazy. And so obviously that has been so helpful and like incredible and like so encouraging as well. But other than that, like I just recently had fan art made for Peyton and Kai,
I
and I
saw
haven't like,
that. I saw that. It was good. Yeah, yeah,
thank you. I literally, that's one of the first Knife to the Throat scenes.
yeah.
And I was like, you know what? This one's important. We got to put this one in there. And so I worked with an artist and she was amazing. And we worked on that. And fan art, like, hits different. Like, I am emotionally, like, I'm attached to fan art. Like, I look at
It
fan
makes
art,
it real. Like it's now it's a real
literally,
thing.
literally, like, I think some of the most incredible and like insane amount of fan art I've ever seen for a series is ACOTAR and The Cruel Prince. Like, those two fandoms have so much fan art and they're so beautifully done. Like, it blows me away. And so like I love that so much. So I guess like, and I have literally had people, the book isn't out yet again. I've had artists like drawing Peyton and like Kai just from like the fan art that I released and just descriptions that I've given them. And it has been like insane to see that. And it literally like makes me tear up because I'm like, people are drawing my characters and it's not even out yet. So again, like even supporting me and like getting word out there is incredible, but also like supporting those artists who are just like doing that for free. Like they're so talented and they're just like, oh, here's this artwork that I worked on for hours for you. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
Gosh,
And
yeah,
it's
people
amazing.
are so generous in this community, just like wanting to help each other
Yes.
out in a way that I really don't see in other communities. So I love that we've been able to like experience it during a time when everybody feels like so alone. It's been
Yeah.
like the past couple of years. So yeah, man, I love being a part of this community.
And it has been incredible. Everyone is just amazing. I love BookTok so much. They're so good.
Oh yeah.
So literally, I feel like supporting the artists who do fan art is so important because they really bring the characters to life and everything. So I love that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so we will support those artists. We will support you, and we'll keep an eye out for when we see it come to life. I'm so excited for you, and thank you for coming and chatting and letting me pick your brain.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I love talking, so this was amazing. Thank
Perfect.
you.
That's what we're made for. But yeah, guys, feel free to like and subscribe because it helps the channel. And then please write comments. Get back to me if you'd like to see any other authors that I can bring on and talk about their books. So that's all. See you guys.